Okie dokie. Well, the moment we've been waiting for has finally come. The debut of SmackDown on the USA Network. The first, what did they call it? The season premiere. At first, Michael Cole said series premiere and then season premiere.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was intentional, though, that he did both series premiere and then season premiere, because he didn't cut himself off. He just did them both as separate sentences.
I think he realized it's not the series premiere. The series has been on, as we're going to talk about, for 25 years. But anyway, I never listened to the theme music, and I accidentally did this time. So I don't know if it's new or not, but this is the worst theme music for any TV show of any kind ever. Now go back and listen to it next week. Holy shit. But this was on Friday the 13th that this show happened. And it was more fitting if it had been the AEW show from Wednesday that was on Friday the 13th, because where everything went wrong for them, 2,500 people in a 25,000 seat building, people misspeaking, shit didn't make any sense, people botching moves. It was a rib. This show was one of the better ones they've done, if only for the first 40 minutes. That alone, they did everything right, even though one would think that the vast majority of people that watched the program watched it when it was on Fox or watch Raw or watch the WWE in general. They treated this like, we're going in to get some new viewers. We're going to get people that maybe watch USA on Friday nights that tune in and don't know we're going to be on, but we're going to hook them. We're going to explain shit to them. It's going to make sense to a new viewer. And I mean, this is television 101, but Vince used to be big on that. Makes sense to the new viewer, but it works in everything. And as soon as they came on, here comes Triple H. Huge pop, big cheers. Michael Cole is plugging the Paul Triple H Levesque era to explain that he's the chief content officer, and this EVP is actually over. The Triple H chants wouldn't hardly let him speak. And then he introed the WWE title match and revved the people up and welcomed them to SmackDown. And we had the pyro is back for the big event, and they were lowering the cage, and they announced it's going to be the first 30 minutes commercial free for the world title, pin, submission, or escape the cage. Hate the escape part. And they went to a history package to explain Solo and Cody and how this match came about. And I mean, so far, again, it's like when a show I love, the UFC did when they debuted on Fox, 15 years ago. For a new viewer, they explained everything, while at the same time, it was a good show for the person that watches every week. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I don't know how many new viewers they would have, but for a new channel, there was nothing about it that felt like, oh, they're talking down to me to explain stuff I already know. I thought they did a good job explaining all the things that are happening, but it wasn't too much different than a normal SmackDown.
No, but they know how to format a fucking show. Is what it, and it just kept, boom, it looks big, and they've got 15,000 people in the building in Seattle. And everything is making sense, and it looks important. It was just refreshing.
What did you think of going with Cody Solo to start the show, and also what did you think of the commercial-free aspect?
Well, it was perfect because breaks would have hurt this match because they had such a good match. They did such a good job with everything. And if they'd have broken like normal, they would have hurt it because you get distracted. But this is instead of just having a normal show and going commercial free for an hour, half an hour, whatever, if it's a big match, they hook the people. And, it's the weekend, so the numbers aren't out yet, but we ought to do the ratings next week just to see what the fuck, because I can't believe they would have certainly not lost anybody. And they probably gained people over the course of the first 2 or 3 quarters. I'm writing down now to do the ratings next week.
All right.
But anyway, Is Solo and Cody, huge pop. They sang his song. Whoa. The whole 9 yards. They did the big match in-ring introductions. Alicia Taylor is not Samantha Irvin, is she? She looks like she stuck her finger in a light socket. Is that a choice, or was she scared by something?
Well, that's her look. Why don't you leave her alone? She hasn't done anything wrong to you yet.
Well, yet, see, you could always expect it. And then they had a good match. And the thing is, instead of going back and forth or play by play on, what the match was, it just observations, besides the fact they're doing long audio mutes. I have a feeling people are chanting, "You fucked up," or "Holy shit," or whatever.
I don't know about that. That's what I was wondering, because they were really long, longer than usual on Fox, but there also wasn't any chant that you heard going into it or coming out of it that would have, you didn't hear the word fuck at all or anything.
You think it's a new person on the button that's not used to wrestling?
I don't know. But it happened twice, I think, on this show, right?
I said no, several times.
Oh, okay.
More than twice. But anyway, the match, it was good because Cody is a genius at selling and the pained expression and the gasping. And then he'll fire up and do his shit and give the people hope, and then he'll get cut off again. And that was the story through the match as they built to the big things every once in a while. Cody hit a cutter off a cage and got a 2 count. That type of thing. But they would sell these things in between. And they would react to things, and it was somewhat logical. Either, okay, now they're trying to escape and climb out, or now they're trying to go through the door, or whatever the case. And Solo would stay on him long enough that he had to fight from underneath. And they kept it fresh. They still did the big stuff, off the top or off the... At one point, remember we were talking about Bryce Remsburg and the count on the AEW show? Here was an example. Cody went to the top of the cage and did a cross body on Solo. And when Solo caught him right, but he was coming from such a height, the momentum, when they went down, Solo's head bounced off the fucking mat. And he grabbed the back of it, and you could tell he rung his bell. And that was a cover, and the referee, 1, 2, and Solo didn't kick out, but he raised his arm enough. And it was like, oh, shit. That's one of those things. If you get your bell rung like that, you can't keep track of a count in an arena, 15,000 people screaming. So that was a close one. But, they did that, and Cody bled just enough, not like a stuck hog. And finally, they built up to it. Cody was crawling for the door. Solo slammed the door on his head, went for the spike, but Cody foiled that and hit the crossroads 1, 2, 3. And that was a great cage match right there. But then they're going to the angle. But your thoughts on the match first, because I want to say something about Solo in a second.
I thought the match was really good. I think the things that they did, you mentioned there was another one where Cody landed like the top of his shoulders / neck.
Yes.
And it just, oof, because of anything you do in the cage or off the cage, it's not like doing it off the top rope. The height changes the trajectory, and it changes the way you have to land. It's almost like if someone dives on you, you have to jump out just to be able to take a flat back bump when you catch them.
And that's why it ain't that easy. And the thing with Solo is, as you'll know when we talk about the angle here in a second, Solo is not a cool heel, because Solo is... I hate to say this, it's going to sound like I'm knocking him. Solo's not an impressive enough worker to be a cool heel. But Solo has gotten good enough for this spot. Because the people, they put him in a spot where he's tried to take Roman Reigns' place, and the people, he has heat because of that with the fans. If he was doing the Jacob Fatu stuff, it would be too much. Solo can get by, and he can be a heel, but he's not so impressive that you start falling in love with him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the thing with Jacob is you need somebody that does all that impressive shit, but he's the enforcer. He's the guy that's under Solo's thumb, so to speak. And that way he can do all that shit. You can put his shit over like $1 million because at some point, as we've talked about, Jacob will look at Solo and say, no. And then you got something there, but Solo, to carry the heat as the top guy, he shouldn't be too good. And it's perfect. But anyway, at that point, here came the Tonga twins and Fatu, and they climbed the cage. And as Cody's waiting on him, Solo comes up and spikes Cody. And then they get heat on Cody, and they're beating him up, and they set him up for Jacob, who does that triple jump moonsault flawlessly. And then he's going to the top of the cage, and suddenly music hits, and it's Roman Reigns, and the people go batshit. And Roman comes down to the cage, all meaningful and menacing. And he gets in and pulls the door shut, and the people pop because he's closing himself up with the whole bloodline. But did you notice when Jacob was on the top of the cage and Roman got in, apparently Jacob got to the floor because Jacob was not in the cage when Roman was in the cage.
Yeah, they never show you him climb down. And I did have a second before Roman came in. I'm like, oh my God, are they going to already have Jacob Fatu do a move off the top of the cage? Because he'll do it. He's crazy. But is now the time? And then Roman came out at the perfect time, but you needed some sort of explanation for Jacob not being on top of the cage anymore.
Well, and the thing is, Jacob did not confront Roman physically. Roman gets in the cage, closes the door. Solo runs into he starts kicking ass on the Tongas first, right? And then Solo stopped him a bit, but then Solo was running at him and ran into a Superman punch. And Jacob's on the floor, and as Roman and Solo looks like Roman's going to get him, Jacob jerks Solo's feet out from under him and pulls him out the door. So as the enforcer, he's also the bodyguard. He went down to the floor so that he could get Solo out of harm's way. But then Roman calls Jacob Fatu in, just like motions, like, come on. And they do a face-off. And that's another one of the long audio mutes. I don't know what the fuck. But then Solo jerks Jacob by the feet and pulls him out the goddamn door. And the Tongas jump on Roman, and they start getting heat on him, but Cody comes up and saves Roman. And then Roman and Cody turn to each other with tense looks, and no affection or handshaking or whatever, just looking at each other. And I'm like, what a fucking angle. And we were 37 minutes in the show, and you didn't get tired of it. Because there was something going on with no commercials. So, I mean, I loved the first segment here.
I love that Jacob and Roman did the exact same thing. They got in the cage and they closed the door right behind them with their one hand.
Yeah.
And then you never got it. And you still want it. And this set up the rest of the show, everything with Cody and Roman, but great opening to the show. I mean, how could you open any hotter?
And if it had been the other guys, they would have given you so much of it, you never wanted to see it again. Anyway.
I was afraid Cody was going for that moonsault off the top of the cage again like he did in AEW.
So when he was climbing that one time, I thought, and boy, but see, that's a risk that they can't afford to take. Imagine how much money would be lost if Cody hurt himself doing something like that.
That's what I was afraid of with a lot of the stuff in this match because of the height of the cage, especially. I mean, if you think about that blue cage, I know it was a pain to work with, but the height was perfect in a lot of ways. Big Boss Man took the superplex off the top of that thing. This thing's so big. And again, there's little room for error, and Cody right now cannot go down. I was surprised they did some of the stuff they did.
Bubba had called me after that. It was Saturday night's main event, right? Bubba and Bossman, or Bossman and Hogan.
They did house shows, and then it ended with the Saturday night's main event match.
Well, he called me after that one because he said, you see the superplex? They had been doing that in most of the house shows. He talked Hogan into it, but the thing is, he was most proud of it because he was making $12,000 a week going around the loop with Hogan. So he was happy to take that one superplex off even on those old hard rings. But so that was 1988. We just talked about 1989.
May
okay.
May of 89.
Sorry there, Kreskin, the amazing Kreskin. But $3 to $1 for 1983, so almost three. So he was making like $30-something thousand a week, the equivalent of today, going around with Hogan at those house shows.
And if you remember, I mean, it says a lot about how the Boss Man was used and how well he did in his role. That was like one of the better performing Hogan house show runs, surprisingly, him and the Boss Man.
Yeah. Well, because Bubba could work and he was big enough that he could be believable against Hogan. And he actually got Hogan to get up off his ass every once in a while because he could take such bumps. Hogan loved to give them to him. Anyhow, after the first segment, the world title match, I'd like to say everything was that good on SmackDown. We got Piper versus, and I'm not talking about Roddy Piper, Piper Niven and Mia. And okay, we've got to acknowledge, even though they had very little to do with it, Waller and Theory had a tag team match that I had to watch. Because it was supposed to be against Owens, and he just said when he came out, his real partner had travel issues, so he got a partner on the fly, and he introduced a guy named Ricky. And out came some job guy you've never seen before, apparently named Ricky.
Well,
like he was going to be Owens' partner. Go ahead.
We didn't get his name yet. He said, here's the partner that they have for him. And out comes this guy. The back of his trunks, I think, said Midnight Heat. And then he gets in the ring and he's got some fur on him. And you're thinking, okay, this is interesting. I don't recognize this guy from Developmental. I don't know who this is. And he said, what's your name? And then he whispers it to Owens. Then he goes, Ricky. That's all you got.
That's, yeah.
The fans ran with it from there for a minute.
The fans started chanting, Ricky, Ricky. And that's what I'm thinking. They have gotten these people to enjoy this shit so much they will chant the names of random job guys that they've never seen before. And meanwhile, you know what's going on the other side. So suddenly, when they've established it's going to be Waller and Theory against Owens and Ricky, then a production assistant calls Owens over and says, he's here. And Owens said, oh, okay, and turns around and gives Ricky the stunner, and he bounces away, never to be seen again, and they play Randy Orton's music. And here comes Orton. And he's over. And right as he gets in the ring, it's right about coming up on 9 o'clock, and immediately they start a fight, and it's on the floor, and they're blah, blah, blah. But the only thing I was surprised, they went to break at 9:01. And they're doing picture-in-picture, but still, they got this thing in the ring and ready to go at 9 o'clock. They went to break at 9:01. I don't know what happened there. But I liked this match because it wasn't anything majorly different in terms of performance than what everybody usually does, except they had a long set where they made Owens fight for the tag. And they milked it like crazy that he couldn't get the tag and couldn't get the tag. And finally, they did a spot where everybody was down and Owens rolled out on the floor, ran around the ring post, rolled back in the ring right in front of Orton and hot tagged him there. And that was a great spot and got a big pop. And Orton made the comeback and bounced both of them off the desk, and they did the stereo draping DDTs, and then a stunner and an RKO, and Orton pinned Waller. And the crowd loved it, and it was different. They actually did something different for once that half-ass made sense. But what did you think of the match here?
I'm disappointed. I really wanted to see Owens and Ricky. I wanted to see what was going to happen with Ricky.
Come on.
I wanted to see what Ricky could do in there. Now they got to bring back Ricky at some point, don't you think?
Well, I think Ricky's got a lot of splaining to do.
That was great because you've seen them try to do, not them, but you've seen stuff like that tried in the past in other places. And even with WWE, where the fans just don't react because they don't care. They care about everything so much, they started chanting for Ricky. And he fed into it. He raised his hand in the air. That was his moment. This guy, whoever that guy was, that was his moment as a wrestler, being Ricky.
Well, anyway, but it's going to be rocky from here on out, a rocky road, because now Aldous said that Solo has made a challenge for Bad Blood. It's going to be the next big pay-per-view. Solo and Jacob Fatu want to fight Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. And there you go. Now we're going to have to see Fatu and Roman, right? Except Cody came in and said, I'm done with the bloodline. They're Roman Reigns' problem. Ain't gonna do it. So Cody will not sign the contract. And Aldous was somewhat off-put by this. But he ain't gonna do it. And that's, again, it makes sense after all they've been through. What's in it for Cody to want to team up with this fucking guy, right? He just fits. Anyway, did you see the Refrigerators promo in the ring?
I did.
Where she sounds like a soccer mom and looks like a soccer field? And the crowd was whatting her. And Bailey came out. What are you laughing about?
I had not heard that one before. Every now and then you still get me with what I've never heard before.
Bailey came out and Tiffy came out and Naomi came out. And Naomi hit Tiffy in the face with her ass. And that was a big deal there. Carmelo wrestled Andrade again, and I said, oh, hell no. But Andrade won, and then LA Knight came out because they were fighting over a shot at the U.S. title. And everything that he says is over, and they love it, and they LA Knight. But he's still, why the fuck is it just they've got so many stars, they don't have room to put him against someone important? But Carmelo Hayes, I'd like to remind you, number 3 draft pick, above Braun Breaker. Hello. So Andrade is going to get the U.S. title shot next week, and there you go. Are you ready for the main event, Brian?
Yeah.
Because now Nick Aldis still has to talk to Roman Reigns. And he gets Roman to come out to the ring, and Roman basks in the adulation that he's getting. And of course, now he's over, and they're chanting OTC and the whole 9 yards. And Aldis starts talking, and Roman holds his hand out. And he's obviously going for the microphone. Aldis gives him the contract, and the way Roman reacted, it's like, you got to be kidding me with the facial expression, the whole thing. And drops it down, holds his hand out, and the people popped. They picked up on it. He didn't say a word. He just reacted, and they popped like crazy. And so Aldis gave him the microphone, and he cut the promo. The only thing, hey, some things change, but not me. I don't need partners. I don't need Cody. Whether I have the Ulafala or not, I am the only tribal chief. This is my ring. This is my show. This is my WWE. And then suddenly Cody's music plays, and out come Cody, kind of stove up a little bit from wrestling in his street clothes, not a suit, but just warm-ups. He's got the belt. And my DVR froze. What a fucking rib. Did they do an overrun on this?
Yeah.
Well, they're doing the same thing as AEW did, and they got to tell us. So what the fuck was said?
Not much was said. Cody reached out and to a major pop because the fans started booing. They were disappointed when Cody didn't sign the contract earlier. He signed the contract. So now
Son of a gun!
We're going to get Roman and Cody against Solo and Jacob Fatu at Bad Blood, I believe is the pay-per-view. Not good blood, but bad blood.
Do you think they have to pay Neil Sedaka?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I almost feel weird saying this out loud, but I've said it before, and that was before they did all this stuff the last few weeks. It's very reminiscent of something with Dusty. It's very reminiscent of like Ole Anderson getting Dusty to beg him to be his partner. But we'll see where it goes, but I don't know. I've had that, that's one thing about Cody. There's always little homages to Dusty in the booking. Yeah. Whether it's from him or from above, from Triple H, whoever. The idea, Dusty, everyone turned on Dusty. Everyone, no matter what friend he had other than Magnum, because his career ended. Everyone turned on Dusty. So that's the only thing I'm thinking. Get them locked in a cage.
Yeah, but it's too early.
Turns.
No, it's too early.
I agree with that. I agree it's too early, but yes, I'm having that
would piss people off in the wrong way. But it might very well happen with Orton, because you could never trust a snake.
If they're doing that match at Bad Blood, at what point do you think Heyman returns? And should Heyman be with the two of them?
I don't think we've seen the incident that would happen yet to bring Heyman back. I think, we're going to have to be, it's probably going to have to be Rumble-ish, building for Mania, whatever they're going to do there with the various players in this game to determine where Heyman would make the biggest impact. So I would think it's going to be till then.
We're still seeing Roman Reigns going after Solo and his people. We're not seeing Roman Reigns trying to put together his bloodline again. That's what we haven't seen yet.
Well, it's going to take some time. And why rush it? All he has to do now is walk out to the ring and the people are screaming. Imagine when he actually does something.
Well, that's the key to wrestling, isn't it? And that was SmackDown.